Comments?
Judy, I think, was just saying, did you say that you mailed letters to people on the north side of 1200?
Oh, you did? Oh, good, thank you.
Yeah.
Make sure
So they
it's
were
captured.
notified as well.
All right.
But you're right, they're not as affected as the people on the south.
Right.
But, and I think too, you mentioned that the flood channel is, like a floodplain isn't I think it is designated, and it is the county.
You are absolutely
There are
right.
right-of-way, I mean, there has been a flood channel designation and right-of-ways, easements given, and plans to improve that, so it's there permanently.
Right. Jamie, any thoughts?
I mean, I feel like we should just make a motion to send it to city council to have it amended and have some of the bridges taken out. My thoughts.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're open for having the bridges taken out. You
Yeah,
may
we're not,
make that motion,
Make that motion, but not.
can, but, we deliberately left that off the table.
Off the table.
Bridge-
Alrighty.
The bridge, or the crossing, if you will. Jerry?
I don't have a lot. I've been studying that, thing that you sent, for that 53-page plan, and it's quite extensive. There's gonna be a lot of discussion for a long period of time regarding all of these crossings. And it has to do with today, tomorrow, and 50 years from now, you know what I'm saying? It's just, I think I have to agree that we probably should abandon the 1200 West, because of the expense of trying to cross that
Crossing.
flood channel. But again, as we go through that list of prioritizing their priorities, as we go through this list, it's gonna be a lot of discussion between us and city council, et cetera, and the public, of course, you know, so this
Right.
is not gonna happen overnight. That's my feeling.
Heather?
the only question I had would be on wording a motion. Would we be modifying the general plan and the future transportation plan? Or just the future just for wording purposes?
Well, that's the part of the general plan you're modifying, is the future
So the,
map of the transportation
okay,
master plan.
the
The transportation master plan is part of the
general plan, okay,
And what we're doing is modifying the map
Yeah.
that designates, because that's the only place these things are found is on the map. They're not designated in text, so you're modifying the map of the master transportation plan of the general plan.
okay.
And to do that, the city council has to do it with a recommendation from planning and zoning.
All right, are we ready?
No.
No,
Not quite.
okay,
Dave?
hold,
any comments?
please.
No, other than I think that there wouldn't be any problem with redesignating this as a residential
Collector.
no? Or is that the
That's what it's
definition?
called on the map right now.
Residential collector to I think there would, from what's the other, a major collector?
A collector roadway.
I mean, what it's designated now.
Collector roadway.
Okay.
Collector roadway to residential collector.
Okay, 'cause, I mean, I just say that so that I don't think it's going to, because of the use in the immediate, well, even the extended future, I don't think it's going to interfere, but it would accommodate the immediate need of these property owners. And so I think from that perspective, I think it could be recommended at this time.
So I would just ask this one question. If yet another developer or group of developers comes in at a different crossing and would like to do the same thing, would we also do that again?
Well, hopefully you're gonna get this completed, you know, by, you know, we're talking maybe April or something, so.
Well, we'll be deep in it by April. I don't think we'll be complete by April.
But I mean, you'd be more to a point that you could address
Yes.
those concerns, I think.
So I'm gonna, you say what you want, but look at that. Are we ready for a motion?
I think so.
What about this last part, though? 'Cause we're not,
Yes, we are. So that's for a turnaround.
Right.
That will dovetail with a future vehicle crossing.
with a possible
say
future?
potential.
Yeah, possible.
What are we talking about?
His wording,
We've got some motion language that we're just kinda
'cause it's long,
fine-tuning, 'cause it's,
and get everything incorporated into it.
the last time we did a really long one, it was painful.
Yes, it was.
Painful.
Yeah, so are we ready for me to attempt this?
Yep.
Let's
Okay.
talk.
I, make a motion that we make a positive recommendation to city council to modify the modify the future transportation map of the general map to revise the designation of 1200 west, south of the Parowan flood channel, and north of Old Highway 91. And so downgrade it from the existing, designation of a collector roadway, which is 65 feet wide, to a residential collector, which the street is 60 feet wide, 60 foot right-of-way with 32 feet of asphalt.
We need to capture the turnaround.
Yeah, I was just waiting for her typing,
Okay.
'cause I learned from you last time when you paused, and I was like, why are you pausing? And you were like, she's typing. Asphalt, okay, and then require for a turnaround that will dovetail with a possible future vehicle crossing of the Parowan flood channel.
We'll get that read back. When
Well
Judy
done,
gets
Heather.
caught up, we may have to do some clarification, but
Kind of a
we'll
combination
restate-
of the two of us jammed together.
We'll restate the motion when you're ready, Judy.
Heather Peet made a motion to make a positive recommendation to city council to modify the future transportation map
Oh, the general plan, yes.
of the general plan to revise the design of 1200 west, south of Parowan flood channel and north of Old Highway 91, and downgrade from existing design of a collector roadway, which is 65 feet wide, to a residential collector, which is 60 foot wide, with 32 feet of asphalt, and require a turnaround that will dovetail with the possible future vehicle crossing of Parowan flood channel.
Possible vehicle, you said vehicle, right? Vehicle crossing?
Vehicle crossing of Parowan flood channel.
Did you say the master, map?
Make a positive recommendation to city council to modify the future transportation map of the general plan.
It's the master
Yeah, it should be
transportation
master transportation.
plan,
Yeah.
map.
Plan map.
Transportation plan map. I missed a word. I missed plan. Of the general plan, yeah.
Of the general, yeah.
please. Maybe 3 or 4 more times, but we'll try this one.
Heather Pete made a motion to make a positive recommendation to City Council to modify the master transportation plan map
Uh-huh.
of the general plan to revise the design of 1200
Designation. Revise the designation. Right?
No, I don't think I said that, but that's okay. That's what you have.
to revise the designation of 1200 west, south of Parowan Flood Channel and north of Old Highway 91, and downgrade from existing design of a collector roadway, which is 65 feet wide, to a residential collector, which is 60 feet wide, 30
Did you say 60 feet wide or 60 foot right of way?
feet, oh, sorry, I read it right away, I have right away.
Okay.
What now, Jamie?
Sorry, which is 60 foot right of way, 32 feet of asphalt,
Oh,
and require for a turnaround that will dovetail with a possible, future vehicle crossing of Parowan Flood Channel.
That was it. Did you follow that?
Jamie made a point that, it didn't give us the option of being able to abandon it in its entirety.
If they want to, with that wording.
Abandon,
Abandon the
abandoned?
roadway?
Abandon the roadway on 1200 and just turn it over to the landowners to do whatever they wanted to with it.
I don't think that was,
We can vote on that.
I mean,
We can make a motion to vote on that before we,
or just give the city council an option, either or.
well, we can vote on that. So what happens is if we make a motion and it passes, then we're done. If we
Yeah.
make a motion and it doesn't pass, then we have the option to revise the motion and vote again and revise and vote again, vote till we get a consensus vote.
Okay, so we couldn't just add
Majority
that onto
vote.
that motion?
Pardon?
We couldn't just add that onto the motion that she just made right now?
Well, so that
Or
would be
with the option
that would be a
to-
friendly amendment if it's accepted by the person making the motion. So Heather's making the motion. Do you wanna have that friendly amendment, or do you wanna
Well,
leave your
what-
motion as it stands?
if we were to leave it to the landowners to decide,
Mhm.
what then,
Well, you're gonna have a
Can't
problem when
be
you
built.
start to do developing, because you can't develop without a road.
and
So
then what
we've never
kind
even
of
talked
road-
about abandoning it. We've
Yeah.
talked about downgrading it, 'cause there's gonna need to be a road in there
Okay,
in order to build.
I mean, if we leave it to the landowners, then could they, or what are the possibilities?
Well,
I don't,
They'd have to conform to whatever the
city ordinance.
city
were.
ordinance is at that point. I think she's just suggesting that we take it off the table, to make it our fiscal responsibility to modify that road if and when it ever needs to be done. Am I right about saying that?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And that was mentioned a couple of meetings ago, that if they did want to subdivide and expand that, then they'd have to address the road at their expense.
Well, they
They're
have,
gonna have to regardless.
yes.
Okay.
The road development is at a developer's expense in all cases. The city doesn't pay for road development.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Well, I'm good with the motion how it is. Thanks for clarifying that.
okay. I
Are
can't,
we saying Heather's motion stands, or
We seconding
is
this?
Heather
Yeah,
saying?
I am.
All right. We second it. I second it.
I second it.
Jamie seconds it. Somebody seconds it.
flip a coin.
I third it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you all.
Whew. How many more of these do we have tonight?
Two
2 more?
more.
And so many more to come. Wait till we hit 200 south. Boy, that's gonna be a big one.
Our next item with the revised agenda order will be number 4. The public hearing to approve the definition of recreational facilities and insert such into the Land Use Code, Chapter 1504.020, definitions. So we're gonna insert a new definition.
So,
You need a motion.
make a motion, make a motion that we, leave our regular meeting and go into public hearing to approve the definition of recreational facilities and insert it into the Land Use Code, Chapter 15.04.020, definitions.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we're now in public hearing. The background on this particular item that we're hearing is that in our code, there is currently not a definition of recreational courts, nor is there a definition of recreational facilities. As we worked through process in the past, specifically trying to issue conditional use permits for pickleball courts, we discovered that we probably need to add a definition of recreational courts. We found that definition to be rather tight and decided to expand expand the concept to be recreational facilities rather than recreational courts. And at this point, Judy, do you have that? Can we pop that up on the screen, the definition?
I have that, but I have the control of the screen, but I do not have that. If you have it, Judy, I can.
I was gonna say, I have a scribbled definition of it up here too as well.
I can get to it real quick.
It's up on the screen now.
Okay. If you can all read that, I won't read it. If you're having trouble, I'll read it. Okay. Recreational facilities means the use of land for parks, playgrounds, tennis, pickleball, basketball, or volleyball courts, or other similar private outdoor recreation uses enclosed with fencing, lawn bowling greens, indoor or outdoor skating rinks, athletic fields, bicycle tracks, skate park, picnic area, swimming pools, community centers, and similar uses to the foregoing, together with the necessary and accessory buildings and structures, but not including a track for the racing of animals or any form of motorized vehicles. Oh, thank you. That's pretty close. Nice. So for this public hearing, we are contemplating making a recommendation to City Council to include this in our code, which was 1504.020, which is the definition section of that code.
Your pen.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, thank you.
Do I have any comments? Yes?
Oh, there we go, now we got it, okay.
Hey, my name is Leilani Wilson. I would find this confusing, just wondering if I'm understanding this correctly. I mean, I would take private outdoor recreation use to be something I'm just doing as a simple individual. Is that what it's supposed to mean here? So like if I want to go to a piece of property and throw a ball to one other person, is that included in this? I mean, would you have to go somewhere that was zoned for recreational facility use if you're just two people out throwing a ball? I mean, that's
Well-
kinda how that's how I would read private outdoor recreation use.
If you're gonna build one, if you're gonna play tennis in your backyard, a conditional use permit is
So like
al-
if
is
you have a
already
house and you
required.
want a tennis court in your backyard, you would have to have it zoned to have a
condition-
recreational
Well,
facility?
if it is, depending on the zone, it's already approved as a conditional use, which means you have to come in and get a permit, and we're gonna have a hearing.
Okay.
We're gonna tell all your neighbors what you're gonna do, that you're gonna build a recreational facility as
Okay.
such, and then we're gonna say, well, you might be able to build it, but if your lights are too bright, or the noise is too great, or by the way, you need to be aware that you need to comply with the city nuisance ordinance with
It'd
regard
have
to
to, it'd have to be
noise and so on.
fenced, et cetera,
Okay.
right?
Okay, so someone putting up like how they, sorry,
Don't
someone
apologize.
putting up like a basketball hoop in their driveway like a lot of people do for their kids to throw out. I mean, I guess the private outdoor recreation use is what's confusing me, 'cause that seems like someone throwing hoops on their basketball hoop in their driveway would be that. Me going into, I mean, there's a thing there, me putting up an outdoor volleyball net to play in my yard would count for that. And, I mean, I'm just
okay.
asking, is that what it's
Right.
counting for, not?
Well,
So I would say no with that, just because it says recreation use is enclosed with fencing. So putting up a basketball hoop in your driveway, that's not gonna have a fence around it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Mr. Burns, do you have an opinion on this?
what,
It wouldn't do.
A basketball court that's lined and
Yeah,
two,
with
two hoops
fencing.
and a group of people playing, et cetera, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't define that as a recreational facility, somebody's individual basketball. I mean, if they're going to pave it and put the, you know,
Mhm.
Well,
a
let me,
full-size court, yeah.
let me point out that this recreational courts has already been in the code in an R1, R2, R3 as a conditional use, and we do not actively police people putting up a basketball court for their own selves. We have never required a conditional use for somebody to do that. The reason why we're modifying it from recreational courts to recreational facilities had to do with the fact that our, Valentine Sports Peak Complex is still zoned R1, and we wanted to do pickleball, and stuff there, and recreational court for, well, if it was a bike park was the question, is does that fit that? But we figured that we wanted to look and expand it from its narrower definition now of recreational court to a broader definition of recreational facility. So, what you have right now is a conditional use for that. What we're changing is we would allow more things under that conditional use, and we're currently not doing any sort of constraint of that. So if what we're doing is actually relaxing what is currently there, and we're not policing those things now, is what I'm saying.
well, thank you, Dan. I wonder, should we consider taking out the word private? Does that do anything? I'm not sure
Which
if it
word,
does
Larry?
or it doesn't. The word
Private.
private on the second line.
That's what I was just contemplating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
Mhm.
I think that would work.
yeah.
Because I think that we... Yeah. But if you remove private, then you're kind of... Well, you could change the word from private to public, and then it would really do what we want it to do, because I think we would all agree that if somebody was gonna do a public recreational facility in their backyard, they would need a conditional use permit for it.
And a business license.
So if you swapped out private for public, it would do what we wanted to do, would it not?
Well, let's talk about that. So right now, if I wanna build a pickleball court in my backyard in an R1 zone, I need a conditional use permit.
Correct.
If I change it to public, then,
Does that mean you have
Then-
to
then
allow
can't
the
you do
public
that?
to use
I
it?
guess that's what your question is.
right, I'm
Can
looking
I
at
put a
that
pickleball
going-
court in
Or-
my house
And,
if that says
and
public?
make it private and not public,
Right.
yeah.
And I have a private pickleball court in my yard, or
Right.
does it have to be a public pickleball court?
So,
I just like it taken out like that.
Similar.
So really what it's gonna say when we insert this definition by itself simply says, these are types of things that are included in the definition. And I think where this gets stickier is gonna be in the next public hearing when we talk about inserting that in our zoning code, that the words recreational facilities. So instead of saying recreational courts, we're gonna end up saying recreational facilities. And what it's gonna say is that they require a conditional use permit.
What's the
So,
definition of
well,
facilities?
let me back up, just excuse me, Jerry.
Okay.
So, the first line, recreational facilities, means the use of land for parks, playgrounds, and all these things.
courts.
Courts. What if we what do you think of, 'cause I'm asking for an opinion, recreational facilities means the use of public lands for parks. What does that do to it?
Yeah, that puts it in the right spot. It's not private.
Well,
But
then
it
you're
could
taking it
be-
out of ever having a conditional use ever in a
For
private,
private use?
yeah.
Oh.
And there's some private use that you would want a conditional use.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
Place, amenity, or piece of equipment provided for that particular purpose. Now it's place, building, equipment used for a particular purpose or activity. Yep, no, it doesn't work. So,
Anybody know off the top of their heads, do we require a conditional use permit for a swimming pool?
I doubt it, but I'll look.
I,
I'm on it.
And I'm talking about a private swimming pool, so R1, R2.
a lot of semantics.
mhm.
In there.
Whoops. Open space.
Design is correct, but the
In the rural estate zone, it is expressly permitted.
Are we in the public hearing? Yes.
Dan, permitted?
It's permitted in the, it's expressly permitted in the rural estate zone, and it isn't mentioned in the other zones.
Not mentioned.
Not mentioned. I wouldn't think that it would be part of a building permit, and making sure they met code and all that, but that's probably about it.
Well, one of the other fixes for this is we could potentially adopt this definition. I still question the word of private. But other than that, if we adopted the definition and then when we plug it into code, what it really means right now is one of these specific things would just could be listed. In other words, if you wanted a skating rink, if it's not listed specifically, it means you couldn't get a conditional use permit for it. I'm a bit stuck at this point.
Okay, can I just bounce off here?
Yes.
So you said swimming pool, so I searched that, and it came up under the definition of open space. And at the previous meeting, I had brought up, well,
It's
what
in
if,
a master plan zone. It's open space in a master plan zone.
Oh, okay.
I looked for it too. That's where it's definitions within a master plan zone.
so I'm right now under land use designation descriptions. So,
Which code number?
the
Okay,
flume,
you're right, it is there as well.
1202-050. But anyway, so it's talking about the low density, medium, it's like defining commercial, mixed use, light industrial, but in it has open space. And one of the things I had brought up was, could we change the zone of, just totally, of that land that the city owns from an R1 to something that would be designated for residential, or not, for recreation, I'm getting my R words confused. And on here it has open space, which says, the open space district is intended to protect and reserve large tracts of land currently in local, state, and federal government ownership, or could include private lands that present a clear public and government need for restricted development that serves a general public welfare purpose. But also in the open space definition, it said recreational facilities and such. I don't know,
That's in section 12 of our code?
it's under the flume. The future land use map districts established. Hold on, and then I'll give you in our land use code, open spaces is defined as, hold on, let me get to it, it's highlight, there you go. Area formerly reserved, improved, or maintained in parks, trails, courts, playgrounds, sport fields, swimming pools, agricultural production, golf courses, and other similar recreational areas.
You mean like recreational facilities?
Well, that's what we're, yeah.
I think what we're just trying to do is just get a definition for recreational facilities, not try to change the zoning or anything like that. I mean, we've already approved. It's just actually getting the city a definition for
Well, I
recreational.
was just saying that if we were to change the zoning, then it wouldn't need a conditional.
But then the city still doesn't have a definition for recreational
Oh, yeah, we
facilities.
definitely
Yeah.
need that too, but anyway, I just, with coming across searching that, I saw that and just, anyway.
Exactly.
So, thank you.
Yes.
So thinking maybe different than that, so what would the implementation of this mean? So it's a definition, and it gets plugged in, and it says for recreational facilities in the R1 zone, a conditional use is required, a conditional use permit is required. So somebody comes in and they say, they'll pick I don't know, pick one, we say they wanna build a bicycle track. And we all go, oh my goodness, that's kind of a weird thing, 'cause you're only on a quarter acre. And then, you know, how big is your bicycle track gonna be, and what's gonna happen to it? And what we are then in the position of, investigating and mitigating is what are the potential downsides of that would be realized if we allowed a bicycle park or a bicycle track on this particular lot. If we find there are things that we cannot reasonably mitigate, then the answer is no. You're not allowed to do that. If we find that it can be mitigated, there's essentially no harm, no foul, and you go forward with that development. The other part of this is, and Dan, you can jump in here if you need to, but you know, from the state's perspective, conditional use permits are administrative in many cases. So the only time a conditional use permit would come to planning and zoning, beyond some of a couple of hard-coded places, would be if the administrative staff looked at it and went, whoa, this one is kinda different, it needs to go to planning and zoning for a broader hearing, and we're gonna do that. But if somebody comes in and says, I wanna put up a basketball hoop, which they're probably not gonna do, but when they do that, the administrative staff is gonna say, conditional use permit's not required for that, go ahead.
So the way our code reads is if you want to do a business at home in a residential area, that is administrative, and I handle those unless there are protests. If there are protests, then it comes to planning commission. The other conditional uses that are for a building permit in a R1, R2, R3, commercial, whatever, those, the code says go to the planning commission in the first place. But if somebody wanted to put a business in their backyard doing this stuff, it would come to myself first, and if there's protests, come to here. Or if I thought this was something that really needed to be heard by the planning commission, I have the option to give it to the planning commission.
Right. And I guess what I'm actually suggesting is maybe we revise that code so it is more in line with state code and we can actually handle all of this that way. Because I don't know about the rest of you, but I trust the discretion of, you know, our administrative staff, especially on this sort of a thing.
Absolutely.
Thoughts on that?
I agree.
I agree.
I still like the idea of replacing private with public on that, though, even with what you've just said.
I do too.
Because if we're not going to often do a conditional use permit for something like, you know, lawn bowling, picnic area, then I'd rather not be in there that it should be done.
Lawn bowling might become really popular. Look at pickleball.
I hope it does. Maybe it's quieter, maybe it's louder, I don't know.
Are you suggesting that some of the things would be better to be dropped off? I mean, a picnic area, unless we designate each thing as public or private.
I think if you say public outdoor recreational uses enclosed with fencing, well, I get what you're saying, because that is one of the items, huh?
Well, I like that, and like I say, me personally would like to see our code get revised so that there is some administrative, discretion used with whether a conditional use permit comes into planning and zoning or not. How are we feeling about the definition as it stands and substituting public for the word private? I'm sorry. Let me back up, take that back.
We did that.
Taking private out and putting public in.
I like it. I think everything else works.
Will that work for us?
Mhm.
So what that would do to us, just in a implementation, so let's say somebody wants to put a pickleball court in. So to enable that to happen in our code, when we go look at R1 code, we are gonna look for something that says recreational facilities require a conditional use permit. And then we're gonna say, what are recreational facilities? And we're gonna come and look at this definition. And the key word there is if you're gonna put in for public outdoor recreation. In an R1 zone, you would require a conditional use permit. And that takes us down a path now where we would have a hearing and consider risks and mitigations.
I like that. I think it works.
So if someone wanted to put a pickleball court in their home and it's private, they wouldn't need a conditional use permit?
They would if as we make the next change in the next meeting. So when we insert, right now, our code under R1, R2, R3, R4, and so on, each code, almost all of them say something about recreational courts. And maybe some other words, and it says conditional use. So now we would go in that same code and it would say recreational facilities and it would list all these things as examples.
Mhm.
Well, I was gonna remind people that we were in public, so if they had a, comment.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
All right, any more, at this point, any more comments from the public? All right, thank you all
So
very
then
much.
should I make a motion?
Please.
All right, so I make a motion that we leave the public hearing and go to our regular meeting for discussion or continued discussion.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let the games continue. I mean, the recreation continue.
So,
So I think where we are at this point is we have a tentative agreement, not backed by a motion or anything yet, that we would substitute the word public on the second, the word private on the second line for the word public.
Mhm.
And at that point, we would have a path forward, and this would be a functional definition.
I like that.
That sits well with council too, correct? Legal counsel?
Scott?
That
Yes.
sits well? Okay.
All right, I would entertain a motion on this at this point.
Go for it, Hev.
so even with that word public being in there, that still answers my question
Tell me ask your question again.
about if somebody is wanting to put in a private pickleball court at their house. They would still need to come in for a conditional
Use permit.
use permit.
That's the way I understand it.
Not right now. as long as
right
it's zoned
now.
for it.
So like the big white house on 100 South, I had to think about where I was at, and they put the pickleball court in. They were just able to do that without R1 zone, without a conditional use permit.
I believe it falls in the R1 zone that they can,
With a conditional use permit.
Right.
yeah.
So that's why I'm that's the only reason why I'm
Yeah.
confused with the word public, is that then saying that a private landowner who is owning and wanting to put in a private recreational facility, does that say that now they don't have to come in and get a conditional use permit? Only if they're public facilities do they need a conditional use permit?
Well, I think your point is well made, and my knee-jerk reaction to that was, why do we need to say public or private at all?
I think that we should just remove the public and private, just leave it similar outdoor recreational uses. So that if it's an individual who wants to put in a swimming pool at their house, or, something that is for their own private use, or for, Dan, he's looking at you. No, Larry was.
Did you catch that?
Yep.
I just wanna make
That was
sure that we
brilliant.
don't paint ourselves into a box where we get an application and we can't work through it.
I thought there was gonna be a vote, so wasn't gonna bring this up until afterwards, but in 1518-020, all conditional use permits, with the exception of where the code says what I said on a business, do go to planning commission.
Right.
So what we're talking about is, the way this is written, and this is in there in R1, that if somebody wants to put a playground, park, tennis, pickleball, basketball, pool, they would require a conditional use permit, which would come to this body. But if you insert the word public, in my opinion, then we're saying it doesn't rise to the threshold of a public facility. If it doesn't rise to that threshold, then it wouldn't require a conditional use permit. And to me, public says that it's not just that, I mean, it's still
Okay.
private. If I have a private swimming pool, I'm gonna invite my friends.
Right.
But if it's a public facility, I'm gonna be charging people, it's a business. I mean, it's a whole different ballgame.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Then I think we need to, I see what you're saying, okay.
Yep.
Similar.
Right. Right, yes. Well, well, the challenge for us is that, yeah.
Steak is my favorite fruit, for the record.
Gee.
Or similar,
So, points to keep in mind, we are talking about primarily residential districts. And being required to obtain a conditional use permit. By expanding the definition of recreational courts, or inserting and changing it to recreational facilities, we're facing some hurdles.
If you took the words both public and private out, or, you know, to either one, isn't the zoning or restrictions gonna take care of it? I mean, is what's, you know, allowed in your your different, zoning? There's different, uses that are allowed and not allowed. And so that would define whether you'd have to get a conditional use permit.
Well, right, and the next public hearing basically says where we are gonna insert the words recreational facilities. And it would be these things, and I look at the implementation of this and I go, if you're in a zone and you come in and, I don't know, if you're in an R1 zone and you wanna build a swimming pool, you're gonna come in and we're gonna well, if we leave the word public in there, we're gonna say you can't build a public swimming pool.
Yeah, I think you just need to not constrict yourself so much and just worry about the recreational facility definition and then insert it into your zoning, where you're gonna use it, and move on.
And let the zoning take care of it.
similar.
Well, I am not quite comfortable with this personally at this point. I can't quite see my way through the implementation as we plug words in and out, and I suspect we can come up with the revised definition that would make that work. And my recommendation, my thoughts would be that we table this and take an action to work through this individually and then bring it to the next meeting and see if we can hammer out a definition that would not require as much debate.
Hold on one second. I understand now what Dan's trying to say with regards to public, that it's, if somebody's wanting to put an above-ground round pool in their backyard or a basketball hoop on their house, they don't need. So we're talking about something that is a large, engineered, architecturally constructed, right, outdoor recreational, that's what we're wanting people to have to come in and get a conditional use permit for. So, other similar, what are some of the words I was just coming up with? Engineered, I think that that's some kind of word there that's and then we'd probably be fine, right?
I think so,
Potentially.
again,
What is that word?
yeah, what is that word and where does it go? And then, again, I'm looking at that and I'm going,
I think your hang-up's on public and private, and those
well,
restrictive.
Well, I'm afraid that like how I was interpreting, public means that anybody and everybody can come. So if I'm just wanting something for myself, then that's where the not clear, it's a little muddy.
Well, and think about it this way, right now we're using recreational courts, and there's some commas, that says tennis, basketball, volleyball, and a few things, which is like 3 items, or 4, whatever that has in it. As we start to expand it, what we're really saying, when we plug that definition in and then refer to that from other pieces of code, what we're saying is that all of these things that are listed require a conditional use permit. And I'm not sure it's our intent to require conditional use permits for every one of these things. Maybe for public, but in R1 you wouldn't get to build a public swimming pool or, as mentioned, a community center.
Well, the different zoning already has, prescribed uses that are allowed or not allowed. And
Right.
so that would take care of it.
No, because with this definition, we're introducing these things as being permitted with a conditional use permit. That's not what it says in this definition, but our very next public hearing in hopefully a few minutes is going to suggest that we start referencing recreational facilities in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces of code. And basically, every one of those says a conditional use permit is required. So every one of these things would require a conditional use hearing. And when I look at that, when I think of a public picnic area, I say, okay, yeah, maybe so. But a picnic area in your backyard? Never. And which is why I'm struggling with the wording. And quite frankly, I hate to burn
Do it
up
again?
a lot of time here. Well, I don't mind doing it again. I just hate to burn up a lot of time here where we're not really making much progress and we don't seem to be moving forward.
Well, by inserting that word public though, that is, taking away private picnic areas. It's saying, okay, you can have a private picnic area then, because you're not using that for public.
Right, but what it also does means you can't have a pickleball court in your backyard.
Why couldn't you have a private pickleball court in your backyard?
Yeah,
You can, but you wouldn't need a conditional use permit.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and right now we do, and if that's what we're advocating, somebody say that. 'Cause I haven't.
Well, that was what I was trying to, the one public comment that we had was, this is gonna get really restrictive to people that are doing things in their yards now. And I said, well, we have not been actively, going to get a conditional use permit. Have we done a single conditional use permit for pickleball court in Parowan since you've been on planning commission?
Not that I know of.
And there's a lot of courts that have been built. We haven't actively been doing this, and I'm saying by putting the word public in there, it kind of keeps things as status quo, if that's what we wanna do.
and
I
that's
didn't
what I
real-
like.
I didn't realize that we weren't getting them.
Yeah,
They would have to have come here.
Yeah, I thought that they have been coming here to get, okay, I didn't realize that.
So if we just change it to public, then the intent is that these other things can be done privately without any building permit or conditional use permit, which would include playgrounds, tennis courts, pickleball courts, basketball courts, or volleyball courts, or other similar public outdoor recreation uses that are enclosed with fencing. And then we go on to list lawn bowling, indoor or outdoor skating rinks, athletic fields, bicycle tracks, skate parks. So you can build a skate park without a permit, a bicycle track, a picnic area, swimming pools, community centers if they're private, and similar things.
I mean, like playgrounds, I have a playground in my backyard right now.
Well, I agree with
You
you
know,
on a...
like with that, like I have a
play-
private playground. Skate parks, I know a lot of people will just do those little ramps. Is that considered a skate park?
No,
like-
I don't think so.
Yeah, so, I mean,
But a public skate park is a bigger venture, so is a
Yeah.
bigger bicycle track.
Well, this, bike park out by the bridge didn't require a conditional use permit.
Well, yeah, it wasn't in code.
What's that?
That bike park out by
Heritage.
the Heritage Park, that didn't require a conditional use permit, did it?
I mean, if somebody's gonna build an indoor, outdoor skating rink, they're gonna have to have the land to do it.
There was a lot of questions about whether we should have required something like that to have happened with that park. With
Right.
with those mounds of dirt.
Right. And
When does it become a park, you know? And he gated it and it's not a business, it wasn't open to the public. He moved dirt around on his property.
Yeah.
That was, I don't know.
By and large,
I hate to restrict landowners so much where they buy property and you're restricting them on every little single thing and you're nickeling and, you know what I mean? And you can do this and you can't do that and you can't do that. I would rather let landowners buy land and choose what they wanna do on it.
Well, it's gotta be
I mean-
guided by code.
Exactly,
I mean,
but,
You got an R1
but I
on
don't
a
think we
quarter
need
acre.
to confine them so much where they're so confined on what they can or can't do on their property as well.
I understand that. All right, I'm stepping back. I'll accept a motion of some sort.
I think we table it.
Yeah, I think we need to make a motion to table it for right now.
All right, I would recommend if we do that, that we pick a date or mention that it be next meeting, so we move it along, 'cause we'll have to repost to have yet another public hearing somewhere down the road. And we might not be ready for that until we discuss it robustly in another
Right.
public
We didn't
meeting.
get much response in this public hearing, so I don't think we'd have
Right.
much in the next one, but it does need to be, it's all a matter of semantics. I mean, I'm plus and minus on this, you know what I'm saying? Yes, you can't restrict people what to do, but yet you have to. I mean, there has to be some regulation as to what you can and cannot do, for the
Right.
size of the property, your neighbor's sake, and on and on and on, you
Right.
know, but.
Well, and I would say I understand both sides of this argument. One, we wanna put something in place to define these things, and as we do so, we're finding out that it's more restrictive or too permissive in some cases, so we need to consider it further.
But
Yeah.
wasn't the original intent to just change that wording to recreational facilities from, what was it
Court.
before? Courts.
Mhm.
Right?
And to have some kind of definition that went with that,
Yeah,
yeah.
we agreed that it could be beefed up a little bit.
Mhm.
We beefed it up all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
She motioned,
Oh, you did?
right,
I make a motion that we table the definition of recreational facilities. Do I need to put a date in there until our next
Till
meeting?
next meeting.
Yeah, until our next meeting.
Yeah,
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
aye.
The ayes have it.
That would be November first, by the way, but
Thank you.
Okay.
guess we don't need to know that. Tabled.
Okay, as we move out of that, we move into
Public hearing.
our next public hearing.
Do,
Do you need a motion to move out?
Yes, I do, thank you.
well, I clicked on the wrong thing.
Are you working on a motion?
I was trying to get the agenda up, and I clicked on the wrong thing and closed
Oh.
the agenda.
I've got it here.
And so,
So it's item number
right here,
Item number 5.
5.
there we go. I got it now. Just so
We should
okay.
move to public.
So I make a motion that we leave our regular meeting and go into the public hearing to change the wording of recreational courts to recreational facility in all cases encountered in the municipal code. Do you need me to list them all? No, I didn't think so. Okay.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now in yet another public hearing closely related to the last one. So that definition that we did not adopt, the intent was it would be likely adopted, and that definition would be plugged in. And then in 9 places in our code, which are basically zoning designations that I think we can probably put up on the screen, at least one of them, maybe the R1 definition. Judy or Dan, whoever's got control now.
Judy does.
So that's like 1526, maybe 030 or something like that.
That's, agricultural.
Oh, then 1528 or 1530 or 32. I don't remember which one.
30's R1,
Okay,
if you want to go to that,
that one.
1530.
So when we look at code, we look at the permitted uses, which you're seeing up there, in this case 1530.020, and it talks about one single family home and some things, and then it says household pets, the tilling of soil, the raising of crops and gardening, churches, or a bed and breakfast inn. So all those things are just approved. You may go in to the city and ask for a permit to start construction to run this kind of a business. The next thing that happens is in 15.30030, which is one of the places this change would impact that. It says things that are permitted are by conditional use, which means it's going to be investigated and there's going to be a hearing. Child daycare or nursery, a cluster subdivision, which is a bigger thing, a golf course, a planned unit development, recreational courts. There's our definition. In that spot, we would be plugging in the words recreational facilities, which would open the door to all those things that were listed, or close the door, however that turns out, on all of those things. And then home occupancies and daycare centers and preschools. So again, all of those things would require a conditional use hearing. And that's what we've been discussing for the last too long. So, at this point, I would ask if there's any comments from the public regarding this concept at this point. Anybody? Come on up, please. Mr. Dean.
John Dean. I like the wording recreational facilities, just because court actually narrows it quite down. And I'll send you a picture, by the way, about I don't do it, but a bowling there's like one in
Bowling
Laguna
Green?
Beach
Oh.
that actually has like a big clubhouse and
Yeah.
it's,
Mhm.
it's huge. I just thought it was a little weird, but you know, bocce courts and things like, or bocce ball, you know, I guess you would call it a court too, but just narrow, you know, recreational facilities, to me, just expands it a little bit more where you don't have to, you know, well, that's not a court, you know, like a bike, skateboard park, that's not a court, you know, so I like the word facilities.
So are you recommending the word facilities as recreational word?
Recreational facilities,
Rather than.
Without any further definition or examples?
yeah, without any further definition or
Okay,
examples.
just wanted to be clear.
Yep.
Thank you. Simple is good sometimes.
Yes.
Any other comments? All right, small audience, I'm gonna
Make a motion?
accept the motion.
Motion to quit?
All right, make a motion that we leave the public hearing and go into our general meeting to discuss changing the wording of recreational courts to recreational facilities in all cases encountered in the municipal code.
I second it.
Aye. All in favor, I'm sorry, jumped the gun.
Oh, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm reading here going, what? Yeah. Okay, comments from the board?
Well, do we table it at this point until we figure out the definition, or do we just go ahead and put make the change and come back to definition later?
I think we should just make the change, once again, recreational facilities broadens it, and then go back and make the definition later.
So all we're doing is replacing the word court to facilities.
Correct.
And at this point, it wouldn't have a definition.
It does not have a definition.
Not yet, but recreational court doesn't have a definition
Right.
as well.
That's right.
Mhm.
Is that one, it's one step out of the way, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
in my way of thinking.
Yeah.
It's all a matter of semantics anyway, until we define it. What the heck, call it whatever you wish.
Have a legal view of that? Scott? Think we're okay with that?
So just point of clarification, so recreational courts has had no definition anywhere in any of the,
Correct.
no, zoning
Mhm.
areas, okay?
Wasn't there a place, I thought we encountered someplace where recreational courts had a comma and it listed tennis courts and some things. Am I
I will
wrong
search.
about that?
When I looked, I couldn't find anything.
Nothing, okay.
Yeah,
I trust that, I just wanna make
Yeah.
sure I ask.
yeah.
I just asked that as a question, I didn't mean to get a debate going.
No,
No, that's
I
okay.
wanna be sure because, we'd be stepping on our own toes if we
Yeah.
did that. All right, I'll entertain a motion when somebody's comfortable.
I'll make a motion to change recreational courts to recreational facilities. Do I need to say in all those places? All right,
Yes, in all those places.
in all those places that Judy will fill in.
And all those code numbers.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Yes, we're gonna recommend this.
Recommend that to city council.
You wanna read the motion back, just?
It's really good.
Do the locomotion.
What was the last thing you said? I didn't hear you.
And Jerry seconded the motion.
Oh, Jerry seconded the motion. Everybody clear?
Yep.
On the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, sorry, I was taking a sip.
Okay, thank you all. Progress.
Mm.
So we're now in our regular meeting still, so that's good.
Member
You need to make a
We have a
motion to
motion to
go
close
back
the
into
public
the
hearing?
meeting.
No, we
No,
are.
we're out of the
regular.
public hearing, we're in
Oh,
our
yeah.
public meeting
Yeah, we're
now.
out of it, yeah.
We are now down to member reports.
I don't have anything. Oh,
I know. Don't let me forget, we're gonna talk.
Yeah, that's not on here.
Talking about-
Jerry?
No, I apologize for being late, circumstances out of my control, it never happen again, and I'm sorry I missed the last meeting as well.
Never say never.
No, yeah, not a problem. Hmm?
we will?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
we'll do that before number 10. Okay. Heather?
Nope, I have nothing.
Dave?
No, thank you.
Dan? Nope. Okay, I have one thing, if I can find it. So on November 1st, our meeting's gonna be a little bit different. Oh, I take that back, it's not November 1st, it's November 15th. On November 15th, our meeting is going to be a little bit different in format. We're gonna work with the Historic Preservation Committee, and we're gonna begin a review of the, Historical Preservation Committee's, Appendix A that's referenced in code. The intent there, of course, will be to ultimately end up with that as, adopted into code that's enforceable. In the meantime, you'll see an email from me going out to a little bit expanded distribution, requesting, with attachments that requests you look at those attachments and review them and come prepared with comments on the 15th so we can actually make some progress. I'm not saying rewrite the document. You might, this group, what I would say is start with questioning yourself on what you think the goal or purpose of Historic Preservation Committee is with regard to historical preservation. And then ask yourselves if the things identified in that document address those goals and objectives. And then it might be, if you don't know or you wanna do something, then you're looking at a comment or a piece of that document that might be up for change or at least discussion to understand it. And I think it'll go well.
Okay.
You mentioned that we've expanded our deadline for this last project to, do we know, we have an end date on that yet?
The one we just talked about and tabled?
The 53-page, yeah.
Oh,
The,
so let me,
Yeah.
yes, let me talk about that. So that is the active transportation
Right.
plan. That
Mhm.
came as a request from the mayor to review and to have you folks also take a peek at it. Those comments are due by tomorrow. I suspect you might have an extra day or two, like maybe Monday.
okay.
I would like those comments back, or if you wanna send them directly to the mayor, just please copy me so I know that,
It's been done.
you responded. In the meantime, I will send you my comments on that document, not to influence you, but just to give you a idea of what I looked at.
Right, I've received it.
Jerry and I had a discussion about that document, and his concept of a review and some things that he was looking at were quite different, in context than what I was looking at, but together they look good, so. I think collectively, this is a chance as a committee to actually work on some planning stuff. I mean, 'cause this document is planning. It's probably got easily a 30-year horizon for implementation. It's not gonna happen.
Mm-mm.
So, just look at it like that.
And I'd just like to add to keep in mind that, a lot of the grants and funding that we can go for to install these things,
Implement those things, uh-huh.
require this kind of plan. So we can't like go to the state and say, hey, we want some money to put in some bike trails. And they're like, okay, well, what is your plan? What is your idea? This kind of document is what we need to be able to go after money.
Exactly that, and to Heather's point, this document will actually be adopted into the general plan. It'll be separable in that you can take it out and go, hey, here's what our active transportation plan says, but our, general plan will recognize that as a guiding document. And Dan, I don't know if, and I wonder about this, so that document seems like it needs to dovetail a bit with the master transportation plan. Are we intending to provide a draft to the engineers for the master transportation plan so they can see the active transportation plan concept?
Yeah, we've talked about it, yes.
Perfect.
Yep, there's definitely a handshake there, and I mean that in the information is flowing, it will be coordinated.
Awesome. So that's all good stuff. So now is the time, because the next time we see that document, it'll likely be a take it and review it and recommend it for approval or disapproval to the city council, which might be a ways down the road, but from this set of comments, it's gonna go closer to being a document, a complete document.
I think, Larry, that recommended, response date was Friday, the 20th.
Okay. Friday,
I mean, that was
You good?
just an ask.
yes. Well, and I spoke with the mayor about it and said we talked about even a further distribution, and then we mentioned the fact that, well, the deadline wouldn't give enough people enough time to even open the cover. And, she said, well, if we provide comments, they're gonna take them within reason, so, that would be it. All right. Any questions about that before I just move us along?
No.
Okay, our next item is approval of the minutes from the October 4th, 2023 meeting.
Can we do that? Judy was saying it's not on the agenda.
Oh.
So can we?
It's the minutes.
I'm like, it's the minute.
Can we vote to amend the agenda for tonight, or is it too late?
No, it's already been posted, but I think we could approve those minutes next meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll do it.
Okay.
I make a motion
You can move things
that
around
we-
on your agenda, but you can't add new things on it.
Okay,
I make a motion that we adjourn. Are we
Okay.
there?
Second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you all, again, for some hard work. Thank you all.